presentation, the marketing consultation, listing presentations for the luxury market. And it's going to be featuring Tami Simms from the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. Now, I remind you again, if you haven't introduced yourself, take a second. Please do introduce yourself. Keep chatting. I love seeing it. And feel free to ask questions. So, we'll ask questions of Tami near the end of the webinar. As mentioned, this webinar is recorded, so you could always rewatch it later. And you can visit our previous webinar library by going to the rlpnetwork.com, and you'll see the path down here: training, webinar training, and sales success. And we've revamped the library. I'll talk about that in a little bit near the end. So I want to remind you of why we're here today in these webinars and why Learning Services is committed to delivering these webinars every single month with our training partners and industry leaders. And that's because of Royal LePage's promise to you. So we're here to help you maximize your earning potential by providing you with powerful business tools, access to leads and referrals, and training for all stages of your career that builds your skills. And if you've been tuning into the Sales Success webinars month after month, I think we've definitely hit a lot of stages and a lot of different experience levels for you. So, I really wanted to start these webinars reminding people of why we're here and say, it's all about enhancing your sales development and also exposing you to the training partnerships that we have at Royal LePage, which ties into Carriage Trade itself. So Carriage Trade is our luxury property marketing program. So as I hope many of you know, if your listing meets on a certain price or a distinctive criteria, it can qualify for Carriage Trade, which is our luxury properties program. That means it gets featured on, a special section of royallepage.ca. It gets a Carriage Trade flag, and you then have access to Carriage Trade branded material you could leverage for your listings. One of the things in Smart Studio, our new marketing platform that we just rolled out to everybody nationwide, is you have an option in Smart Studio to set a special listing kit that will give you Carriage Trade branded material for any listing that automatically qualifies as Carriage Trade. So even easier for you to check that out. Now, in terms of that, I do want to kick things over to Tami because she's the person we really want to hear from. Now, Tami is a real estate marketing expert and accomplished trainer. Her background in advertising and as a concierge at a luxury resort provides her with real insight on reaching and serving the luxury consumer. Now, her experience selling luxury real estate ensures that she understands the challenges faced by you yourselves, the residential sales professionals, in today's upper tier market. She's trained with the Institute founder, Lori Mormore, and presents the Institute's 2-day training with energy and expertise. Audiences give her outstanding reviews. And again, if you tuned into last year's webinar in September with Tami, I loved it. I thought it was one of the best webinars I saw all of last year. I didn't tell you that, Tami, but that's what I'm telling you right now. I really, really enjoyed that webinar. I took a lot of notes.
Thank you.
Tami is a $1 Million Guild member of the Institute. She holds the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist designation, the Certified Residential Specialist designation, and also the Certified International Property Specialist designation. So she has a lot of knowledge to share with you. And with that, I'll put it over to Tami.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I am delighted to be back with you. I'll say, just for the sake of jealousy, that I'm joining you from Florida. So it's a little bit different weather, but I completely understand that we are a broad geography. So our topic for today is what we typically refer to as the listing presentation. Now, at the Institute, we like to refer to it as a marketing consultation because most importantly, it's about establishing ourselves as marketing professionals as opposed to just listing properties for sale. So let's go down that path. And the important thing is that we treat this as something that is far more than just the meeting when we sit down with folks. It is about gathering information initially. And Mike, I'm seeing just the original page on my PowerPoint as opposed to going through. Are you seeing the movement?
I am just seeing the original page.
Just seeing the original. Oh. All right.
So you're scrolling through right now. You're not seeing.
I am scrolling through, and I am not seeing anything. So
okay, let's if you want to just close that presentation, then for now, just escape out of it.
Yeah, let's
And let's just do a screen share then. Can we just share your screen totally, or no, we couldn't do that?
sure, we can do that.
Is that going to work for you?
Oh, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's see
Because you have
here.
2 monitors,
We're
right?
gonna do, yep, I do, and I think that may be what
Could have been.
is, let's see if that is gonna do it. Give me just a moment. I think we have just a little bit of a delay. I apologize, everyone, for the last 30 minutes. Mike and I have been making sure that this was all set, and of course, it did not. All right, so I think that we are in business now.
Well, I see now the slide with the different people on it and
Yes,
the marketing
perfect.
consultations.
Yep, I
So
think that we're in business. So getting back on track, thinking about the marketing consultation as more than just the meeting that we typically think of as the listing presentation when we're actually physically meeting with a prospective seller. So today, what we're going to cover is the importance of gathering as much information as possible ahead of time so that you're incredibly well prepared. Setting clear expectations. This is a very important aspect of managing this process and really of positioning yourself as a professional. So we'll talk about that in particular. And then there are some strategies that you can engage in before the meeting. We often refer to that as pre-list. And as I interact with real estate professionals around the country, around the continent, I'm constantly running into some of the most successful real estate professionals who still are always trying to improve their what we call the pre-listing strategies, so that they really have a leg up when they sit down for that meeting. So part of the whole process, both in a pre-list and then when you're together, is demonstrating your value. So we'll spend some time today talking about that. And then, of course, pricing is always a challenge. And as the price point goes up, remembering that we are talking specifically about the luxury marketing here, that it becomes very, very specialized, and there's a lot of nuances to it. It's more of an art form than a process. And we'll talk about niche marketing to build some specific marketing plans that will make you stand out from others that might be interviewing for the same listings. And really, it's about standing out. It's about differentiating yourself, and that's a key component of what we believe makes a difference. So let's talk about that preparation. And we suggest that there are some questions that you should ask the prospective sellers before the first visit. And you'll notice that I'm using the word first visit there, and we'll talk about the multiple step process a little bit later. But before you ever visit the property, we think that there are some questions that you should ask that have a variety of different purposes. So the first question is whether it's been listed previously. And in most cases, you'll probably have access to that information from a previous multiple list. But in luxury properties, it's quite possible that you could find a property that has been privately marketed. And so even if you don't see that it has been listed, it's a question to ask. This is the perfect opener, if it has been listed previously, to ask what it was that didn't work for them, what it is that that's important for them in listing this time around. So it's a good positioning question. And also the questions that you're asking ahead of time are really kind of exploring the relationship in terms of how forthright are the sellers. Are they really open with information, or does it take a little bit of effort to pull information out of them? So again, what are their expectations, whether it's been listed previously or not? You need to understand what it is that they're expecting, what's most important to them. And some folks know the answer to this right away, and some you have to really kind of coach them on that. Also important to understand whether they'll be interviewing other potential listing agents. And this is so you have the opportunity to do your homework and understand which other brands or which other real estate professionals you might be competing with. So important questions to ask. Now, also in that initial information gathering, questions to ask right away, here's a few more. How about the age and the size and the property size? Now, you might be thinking, Tami, I can look that up. I've got access to all that information. But if you're like me, you have occasionally gone to a property for a listing meeting and discovered that it was not indeed the same size that that you found in public records. And in some cases, you have properties that have been completely redone from one wall or from the studs up. And so if you've done all of your advanced preparation based on what you find in public records, you can find that when you arrive at the property, you have not done the right homework. So these are questions to ask of the seller so that you can find out these things ahead of time. And property size often comes up in larger parcels of land that may actually have been subdivided or have had easement issues. So good questions to ask. Now, we know that there are some architects and some builders that really add to the value of a property. And so it's important to find out right away whether or not there's a significant architect or builder who's been involved. And conversely, if you have a seller who answers that question with an architect or a builder that you've never heard of, it gives you the opportunity to research them before you actually meet in person so that you can be knowledgeable and have that additional competence when you meet in person to know about who it is that that designed or constructed their home. Now, here's an interesting question. Has it had any media coverage in the past? You might find some interesting answers to this question. On the one hand, it could be very positive media coverage, such as having been a home featured in a charitable opportunity or something that that got some extra publicity that you can find advantageous as you're building your marketing plan. But sometimes you'll find that there has been negative publicity in the past. And so that's something that you should be aware of as well, because it's going to impact the prospective buyers' feeling about the property, or perhaps some challenges in overcoming a stigma. So that's an important question to ask right away. Now, this is the easy question. What have you enjoyed about the house and about the neighborhood? Or this could be, of course, condominium or duplex, any type of property. We've used house here just in general terms. But this is the opportunity to find out what it is that they liked the best, because I think you'll find that that the reason that they enjoyed it or they chose it will often be the same reason that someone else is going to choose it. So, important question to ask. And then this one, we call this one of those magic questions. Is there anything else that you'd like me to know? You can also find some very interesting responses here. We had one of our members told us about a property that that was haunted. So ask these questions so that you can get as much information ahead of time as possible for your preparation. Now, I mentioned that we were going to talk about setting expectations. And I find that from my own perspective, as well as talking to others, that that sometimes we give a little too much control to the prospective sellers, and we forget that we really are professionals, and that we drive a great deal of this process and transaction. So setting clear expectations is number one. Is it going to be more than one visit? So I alluded to that just a little while ago. Now, in our ordinary price points, in neighborhoods that we are quite familiar with, perhaps those that we have a great deal of market share in, we might be able to do a one-visit marketing consultation or listing presentation because we're so familiar with the product and with the market. But as you work in luxury marketplaces, you'll find that that it takes a little more effort. And so in order to do the right homework and establish the right plan, we think that you might consider doing a two-step marketing consultation. So if that's going to be your approach, then you need to make sure that you are clear about that upfront. Set that expectation. And In the case of a multi-visit, it's going to be important that you actually share when it is that you're going to present your pricing suggestions, because one of the most important reasons for a two-visit approach is so that you can see and feel the property and then go back and compare it a second time to the research that you've already done to make sure that it has consistent amenities and quality factors and features that match the price point that you have in mind. So make sure that if you're not going to present your pricing suggestions on the first visit, that you set that expectation up front. And then also, how are you going to build a specific marketing plan? Make sure that you share that with them. We're going to talk a little bit more today about using niche marketing to build a specific plan for each individual property, as opposed to the basic foundation that you probably will utilize for almost all of your properties. Set yourself apart up front by making sure that they understand that you're going to build a specific plan for their property that doesn't just fit every other property that you list. So let's talk some more about the pre-listing or pre-meeting strategies. So you've set the appointment, you've asked the questions, you've set expectations. So one of the most important things that you can do is confirm the appointment, which is a great initial follow-up. So some of you may be most comfortable confirming by email. And something clever that I learned recently was from one of our members who takes this a next step and actually sends a digital calendar invitation as part of their email confirmation. This is particularly effective with business people who are used to working in that digital shared environment, but to send them an actual digital calendar invitation that serves as part of the email confirmation. And if you take that approach, then it's very easy in that digital invitation to actually include an agenda for the meeting. So when I talked about setting clear expectations, setting the expectation of how much time you're going to spend together and also what you're going to cover and how the meeting is going to be structured, these are things that will differentiate you from the get-go from anyone else that is going to be interviewed for that listing. So I find these to be really effective techniques. Now, I am a big fan of the handwritten note. So assuming that there is time between setting the appointment and when you will actually be meeting, in addition to that email confirmation, send a handwritten note. That's, again, another way to set yourself apart. It's old school, but people love it. There is nothing more valuable than the handwritten note, in my opinion. So also, it's important that you share with the prospective seller samples of your marketing materials, particularly your other property marketing, and other materials that you want them to review ahead of time. So if indeed there's enough time to send something either by post or by delivery courier, then send that along with the handwritten note. But you can also send these things digitally. So samples of your property marketing, this is really important because they're going to be setting their expectation of you. They're going to be making judgments about you based on the quality of your marketing materials. So share with them some of the materials that you've used to market other properties or other neighborhoods. And in fact, if you do a market report, which we think is one of the most effective ways to establish yourself, send that market report as a sample of your marketing materials. That will also really set yourself apart as a professional. So here's an example of one from one of your colleagues there, and that will be part of what they're making their judgment about you on is the quality of your materials and also the fact that you're establishing yourself as an expert in their neighborhood or their type of property. And I particularly like this one as it relates to the luxury market, in really reaching out. What does $1 million buy you in Canada? That's speaking directly to that luxury audience. So just a good example. So what other kind of materials? Certainly you need to provide information about you if you have a team or if you have support. Anything that you can share about about how you do business, your sales data, and we'll give some examples of this in just a second. Also, your luxury credentials, what you have available in your toolbox that's going to be essential for them. Now, also, some of the materials that you're going to want to provide are the foundation pieces of your marketing plan. I mentioned that we're going to build marketing plans specific for the property, but there's going to be some foundation material that is important for all of your properties, the way that you do business. And then relevant market activity. Even if you're not going to give pricing advice on the first listing appointment, you certainly are going to want to establish yourself as being knowledgeable about the marketplace. The lack of giving a price on the first appointment should not come across as lack of expertise in pricing. In fact, if you provide really good luxury specific market information, it will reinforce the fact that you are more knowledgeable and that it is super important that you take pricing seriously. We'll dig into that a little bit. Sample forms are also quite important. For example, if you're doing business with someone from another region or from another country, it's important to share with them the process of how things work. This also establishes yourself as an expert in understanding the process, right? And perhaps I should say process. It's a dead giveaway that you have an American on the phone.
You had some neighborhood spellings that were inappropriate as well.
All right. So also, when I mentioned that you need to share about you and about your team, how you do business, make sure that you really share who you are, because people are choosing you. People are choosing you based on a lot of things, including whether they feel a connection with you. So what you're seeing on the screen here is one of the seller books, actually, that we have in partnership with Real Marketing, with I know many of you are familiar with, but a book that really covers a lot of these pre-listing strategies. And so this is a great way to share about yourself, whether you have others that are part of your team, whether you have specific specialties, types of properties that you specialize in. And also, we find one of the most important questions that sellers will ask is, how are you going to handle showings? Whether they'll be in person, whether it's you, whether it's a member of your team, and how will you provide them feedback? It's one of the biggest questions that we get. So making sure that you explain that ahead of time is quite important. And testimonials or reviews. This has become one of the strongest areas in getting people to make choices based on other real experiences. So make sure that you share testimonials about your business style with them ahead of time. And remember that we're talking about materials to share ahead of time. And I think that's important to remember because you're sharing materials ahead of time that are more about you. And that way, when you get together, you're spending more time talking about what their needs are. They've had the opportunity to meet you. And this is important in a lot of respects, because there are some sellers who actually will make a decision if they really have a connection with someone before they've even finished interviewing all of the folks that they intended to. So so make sure that you take advantage of every opportunity to get in front of those sellers before they make a decision. So relevant sales data. What experience do you have specifically in the price range? And I've put together just a sample of what this might look like, and make it relevant to the the sellers that you're interacting with, and also your company's luxury statistics, right? These are really important things for setting the stage for your familiarity with the type of business that you're endeavoring to engage. Now, as we talk about your luxury credentials and toolbox, I want to just remind, of course, the training partnership with the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. One of the biggest toolboxes that you can get is by becoming a member of the Institute. And here's just a little screenshot of some of the benefits of setting yourself apart in attracting clients, being able to market properties through specific areas, connection with other like-minded individuals. But it's important to note that you can take Canadian-specific training. The online training is available, and also a few times a year there's live training in Canada, but of course you're welcome to take it anywhere in the continental United States as well. So by taking the training, it gives you the additional tools, particularly of earning the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist designation. And so that then can become part of your toolbox of making sure that the prospective sellers know that that you have special skills, that you have special tools. And then, of course, Carriage Trade really provides you with the brand edge. So make sure in that advanced material presentation that you highlight Carriage Trade as a tool in your toolbox. So the foundation marketing strategies that I have mentioned, you're going to have some things that you do for all of your listings. And these are the types of things that you can share ahead of time in terms of how you market properties. So in particular, what kind of photography or videography do you use for all of your high-end properties? This is going to be kind of a benchmark. And then do you provide staging services? And this can be actual staging, it can be virtual staging, but what I'm encountering is that this has become the norm, that luxury real estate professionals are offering some level of staging services as part of their services, not as a added fee or something that the seller is expected to contribute financially to, but some level of staging services. So if you do that, make sure that you talk about that in your advanced materials. Now, also, what kind of printed materials do you produce for your luxury listings? What kind of digital exposure can they expect? So it's important that you share examples of how you've marketed other properties and also how that is presented digitally, right? So what kind of exposure can they expect from you in general as the foundation of your marketing strategy? So how about if you utilize cutting-edge listing technology? This is becoming more and more prevalent and something that sellers are expecting. So some examples of that, 3D home tours and interactive floor plans. This is a sample of a Matterport shot, which I'm seeing more and more around the country and around the continent. And there are pros and cons to this approach, but I'm finding more people utilizing it. So it's something that you need to be aware of. And if you do utilize it, make sure that it's in your materials. Drone photography and videography also becoming more and more prevalent. So if you're using those technologies, make sure that you highlight them. And then social media. This has become an expectation in even the upper tier. A lot of folks have resisted that in the upper tier recently, or up until recently, because they really thought that it was a younger demographic. And I'm here to tell you that the demographic of the luxury consumer is getting younger and younger every day. And even those older luxury consumers are consuming social media in very specific ways. So make sure that you're incorporating some sort of social media strategies and that you share that with them, right? At the end of the day, any of the materials that you share need to be memorable, right? You are making an impression with them about the quality of your work and how it's going to be related to how you're going to market their property. So make sure that your materials are memorable. And there are some materials that are costly to prepare ahead of time, and so it's not unheard of to actually share materials like this hardbound book that you see on the screen, and you can set the expectation that you'll actually be collecting that back from them when you meet in person. So whatever you need to do to make sure that that presentation is just outstanding. So let's talk about market data. I mentioned that that's really important. So what I'm showing you here is the example, an example of the type of chart that is showing year over year change in sales percentage. And this is December year-end, December 16th versus year-end 2015. And this is important to share as the groundwork for your market knowledge, because in particular, it highlights the fact that things are happening differently in different regions. So most people read the news, or they consume mass media in a way that they're hearing statistics about the real estate market that are far too global. And they make assumptions about how their listing, how their home is going to perform in a marketplace that sometimes is not realistic based on what's happening in their specific region versus others. And so I know that there are a number of you on the call that are reflected here in this chart that are performing differently than other parts of the country. So it's important to educate prospective sellers about the reality of the marketplace that they are in and what to expect. Now, another thing is sharing that information as it relates to other parts of the country. And here, looking specifically at $1 million plus properties, what an incredible difference from the Greater Toronto area to Vancouver, for example. So these are really, really important figures and important data to share with your prospective sellers that positions you as an expert in the marketplace in the price point that you are wishing to work. So make sure that you stay on top of the statistics and utilize all the resources that you can to share that information with your prospective seller. Now, then we really think that it's important for you to drill down to the most minute level for the prospective seller that you're talking to. And we think that analyzing local market activity by price band is really, really important. And what I mean by price band is, picture, if you will, a community that has attached homes that are at a certain price point. But if you move up another $100,000, you can buy a detached home with a small yard or maintenance free. And then at another price jump up another $100,000, you might be able to purchase a detached home that actually has a yard. So if you took a neighborhood that had all of those different products at different price points, and if you provided data that was averages for the entire neighborhood, you wouldn't be providing very relevant data to the specific seller that you're talking to. I think you'd probably agree that that analyzing those specific price bands would be very, very important. Now, also, when you're talking about pricing a luxury home, sometimes there's a broader range of price points to consider. And most sellers like to push the envelope. If I got paid $1 for every time that a seller told me that they didn't want to give their house away or that they didn't need to sell, I think that I might be a wealthy woman. But here's an example of how you take this data and use it to articulate your point. So here we're looking at an imaginary market, and we're evaluating properties that are at the $1 million plus point. And here we've broken them into segments of between $1 million and just under $1.25 million, $1.25 million to just under $1.5 million, $1.5 million to just under $1.75 million, $1.75 million to just under $2 million. And then everything that's $2 million and above is classified together, right? So remember, this is an imaginary market. And you also have to remember to make sure that the price points start or stop at someplace relevant. And so make sure that, for example, in the $1 million to $1.25 million, that you have to stop and end there with $1 difference, or else you're capturing the same data twice. So that's very, very important. And so here, the illustration that we're making is, look at the difference, for example, between just under 2 million and just over 2 million. It's more than 2 months on the market. And 2 months carrying time is quite expensive for a property of that value. So if you're able to articulate that pricing at a certain point has the potential of shaving 2 months or more off the marketing time, that can be very, very helpful in positioning that property appropriately for the market. Now, here's another way to utilize data to help you with pricing strategy in a conversation with a seller. So this is, again, an imaginary neighborhood. And so we're looking at just one particular price band. And so that just happens to be between 900 and just under $1 million. And so this could be a neighborhood on one side of town, or perhaps one region. And then you take the same price point in another neighborhood in another area, and it could be performing entirely differently, right? So here, flipping back to neighborhood X, this is a market that is actually softening. And this is important for you in your marketplaces that are shifting now with a variety of different factors, to make sure that you stay on top of whether or not your market is softening, or in the example of neighborhood Y, whether it's actually strengthening. And identifying list to sale price ratio and understanding those trend lines to help your sellers better understand where they need to position their property, or to make a better business decision for yourself in terms of whether or not you'd like to take a listing that perhaps is priced a little higher than you're comfortable with, or in a price point that there's been little activity in. So utilizing that very local, hyper-specific data can really make a huge difference in setting yourself apart on a listing presentation or in a marketing consultation as being knowledgeable about the market. So then you come to the actual first visit. You're at the home, most likely, and you are meeting with the prospective sellers. So it's important that you tour thoroughly, take notes, right? Make specific notes about the amenities that are in the home, because as the price point increases, this bundle of amenities is going to become the most important thing in determining correct pricing. So you're also working to establish rapport and credibility at this point. And by credibility, I mean awareness of the brands and the finishes that you're seeing in the home, making comments about them so that they know that you're familiar with those types of finishes. And remember, I said that the important question, one of the important questions to ask ahead of time, was whether or not a specific architect or builder had been involved. This is where you have the opportunity to bring that information back up and build that credibility that you really know what you're talking about. Now, as you're making note of all these features, you certainly want to acknowledge those positive features, but you also want to be pointing out the negatives. I find that many of us, when we're sitting with a prospective seller, that we often try so hard to say what we think that they want to hear, that sometimes we don't position them for things that we know are going to be negative feedback. So it's very important to at least make note of those things up front when you're on the first visit. So also, all the materials that you've sent ahead of time, this is the perfect opportunity to review those or ask if they have any questions about them. And you'll find in some instances that they'll say, you know, I haven't had the opportunity to review them, only took a few minutes. So you have the opportunity here to point out some highlights of some of the things that you sent, if they need any help with that. And also remember that this is an opportunity for you to review those in a digital presentation. So all of the materials that that we talked about sending ahead of time should be loaded up on your laptop or your iPad, so that you can quickly review them in a digital presentation, which also establishes you as being up to speed on current technology and the tools that are important to use, right? And the most important thing to do when you're in a marketing consultation is truly listen. I think that that people are so often looking for good communication skills, and that starts with listening. You need to follow their cues, hear what they're saying, because they're going to be sharing things that are important to them that you're going to need to deliver back in your marketing plan, right? So it's also important to try to get their pricing expectations at this point. They usually will have them. Now, remember that you've set expectations on whether or not you're going to be giving them a pricing recommendation on this visit or not, but see if you can get a sense of what they're looking for. Now, if they press you, you have the opportunity to really use some good scripts to avoid talking price before you're ready. If you give a ballpark or a guesstimate, or if you give in to that urge to want to satisfy the seller who's looking for a number right then and there, you need to be able to rely on good scripts that will allow you to navigate that conversation and not put yourself in a bind of being held to something that you might change your mind on when you go back to your market analysis. So here's a script that you might use. I would never do you the disservice of taking price lightly. Correct pricing is too important. Your house is special and unique, and I want to carefully review recent relevant property sales, evaluate other homes with which your house will be competing, analyze current market statistics, and then come back to you to discuss the recommended marketing price. Right? So if you're comfortable with scripts and dialogues that will allow you to navigate this conversation, then it will take some of the pressure off. Now, another magic question to ask when you're trying to get some pricing expectations, this is a great one. Could I ask you, as I begin my pricing research, is there any particular property that you'd like me to pay particular attention to? Now, this is such a valuable question because invaluable or invariably there is one. And of course, it's the Joneses home that sold around the corner for $1 gazillion and isn't anywhere near as nice as theirs. So make note of that property. And then when you have the opportunity to come back to discuss the pricing strategy, then you have the opportunity to include in the conversation, you asked me to pay attention to the Joneses sale around the street, and you'll notice that I haven't included that in my market analysis, and here's why. Because it sold 2 years ago, because it was either half as big or twice as large, and incidentally, it didn't sell for $1 kabillion after all. So otherwise, if you hadn't asked this question and they had that property in their mind as a benchmark, you would wonder in the presentation whether you had missed something if they brought it up that you hadn't included that. So this is a great question to ask to avoid wrong. So let's get down to the pricing strategies. So after the first visit, you've now made note of all of the amenities and the features that they have in their property. And now you get to go back to the market reports that you've prepared, go back to the properties that you can pull up on the computer and develop some pricing strategies. So those amenities, have a look at the other properties in the price range that you think that it should be in, or where those properties that have sold in that price range, and compare the amenities and finishes, and make sure that that you're on the right track, or see if there's anything missing in particular. So consult other professionals, right? As the price goes up, there are fewer comps, which we refer to as relevant properties, and so consult with other professionals, other folks. Maybe you have a luxury marketing group in your area, or other members of the institute that you can reach out to. So get some opinions from other folks if necessary ahead of time. And then when you are preparing your market analysis, think about using an executive summary. And by that, I mean that the end result of your research goes on page 1 after careful review of the market and careful analysis of all of the properties with detailed information to follow. Here's the recommended marketing price. So that presentation alone will set you apart from others who are interviewing for that property. So then let's talk about building the marketing plan specific to the property. Everyone is going to be unique. No marketing plan is going to be exactly the same because the properties are not exactly the same. So as you're building your marketing plan, you start with the foundation elements that we've already touched on. Certainly you're going to be using professional photography, great copywriting. This is very, very important in the luxury marketplace. Make sure that you've got quality brochures. Property websites are very important as foundation pieces. And then get creative. This is where you can truly stand apart from others, building that niche marketing plan, right? Define the lifestyle. That's the first step. Define the lifestyle that the property represents so that you can truly understand what assets you need to be capitalizing on. And then defining that lifestyle is going to allow you to identify the best prospects, right? Figure who are my best prospects, and then how do I best reach them? Right? Which publications, which avenues, all the different strategies that are going to come into place have everything to do with who your best prospects are and how to reach them. Right? Now, then you have to determine your budget. And there's no right answer to this. People ask me all the time, what's the appropriate amount of money to spend marketing a property? And it's going to be entirely different depending on whether or not you're looking to gain market share, whether it's a property that you'd like more of or not. And so you have to determine how much you're comfortable spending on the property marketing. But I will say one thing, that any dollars that you spend on marketing a property truly are leveraged for other things. So think about how you can best leverage what you're spending on a property marketing to get other listings, right? To position yourself in front of other luxury sellers and buyers. So you determine your budget and then build your marketing plan based on what comes into play that fits your budget, and then put it in writing. I'll show you an example of that in just a moment, but putting it in writing is really, really important from a deliverable perspective, and also to support your professional fee. I call it defending your professional fee of how you're going to truly work to market the property. You're not just going to list it in a multiple list and hope that it sells. You're really going to be putting some professional marketing services in play. And then create a calendar. This is very important because so often you build the marketing plan and you have this list of all of these wonderful things that you're going to do to market a property, and you try to do them all at once. And then you find yourself 30 days later, assuming that you're talking about properties that are more expensive than those that are selling quickly. All of a sudden, 30 days later, you've spent all of your money, you've used up all of your ideas, and now you have those awkward conversations to have with the seller of, what have you done for me lately? So here's an example of a written marketing plan, right? So this is different than the pre-listing materials that showcase your foundation marketing that are beautiful. What we're seeing here is really a drill down specific marketing plan written for a specific property. And you're going to modify this based on the type of property. And certainly I find that one of the most challenging opportunities is when you have to build a marketing plan for a property that that is privately marketed, that can't go in the MLS, right? Very, very interesting. So here's an example of a calendar approach, right? And I just modified one from the fall, and it really lays out, sets expectations with the with a seller on when things are going to happen. Sometimes the seller will assume that things are going to happen all at once. So you need to build the expectations of how things are going to be delivered over time. That also positions you beautifully for meeting with a seller of a luxury home every month or so. Knowing that it's likely to have more time on the market, you need to be prepared for what you're going to say in addition to market information. So reviewing the calendar of what's been done in the last 30 days, and then perhaps what's coming up in the next 30 days, these can be very, very meaningful in your relationship with the seller. So how about this second visit? What's that all about? So the second visit really is an opportunity for you to deliver in a very professional manner. And it could be back at someone's home, but we also suggest that you think about, should it be at your office? This means that your office has to be presentable and professional looking, but your office can be a great opportunity to, again, establish yourself as a professional with an office and a support staff, and really set the stage for the professional services that you're providing. Or by video conference. There's plenty of other technology that's available, whether it's just a convenience factor or whether or not your prospective sellers are local or from afar. And then this is the opportunity for you to review the marketing plan and share your pricing advice. So those are the things that you're going to be looking to do on the second visit. And really the second visit is about determining whether or not you're the right fit and you'd like to work together. So certainly this is the culmination of all of that work that really positions yourself as the professional to choose. So make sure, though, that you follow up. After the first visit, you need to make sure that you acknowledge their time. At every step of the way, make sure that you follow up so that they feel that their time's been respected and that they know that you are working to deliver the best professional service as possible. So just a quick review of the things that we think are important that we've talked about today. Initial information gathering, setting clear expectations, pre-meeting strategies, that pre-list strategy, demonstrating your value proposition, really understanding pricing nuances and niche marketing, and at the end of the day, standing out from the crowd and getting the listing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to see if there's any questions or comments.
So one of the questions that we did have from somebody in the Vancouver area was just around the Vancouver stats that you had shown in terms of the $1 million plus listing and saying minus 1%. And they were like, I don't know if that they didn't feel that it was jiving. So
sure. So those are statistics that are actually published by Realtor.ca, and they publish those figures actually every month that are year over year changes in the number of transactions. So that's coming straight from data that is outside of our control.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what as we were looking at. He was sending me some stats and we're comparing stuff back and forth. I was like, I think it's all into slicing, dicing. Now,
it is.
One thing I wanted to know, I actually, so I'll encourage people, if you have questions, type it in the chat. I haven't really seen many questions, to be honest. I think a lot of people are just listening. But I wanted to ask, one of the things that I know some agents were dealing with that I've heard is, I mean, how do you deal? So when you're going to that marketing consultation, you're sitting down, and one of the things you mentioned early on was talking about that competing listing agents. So how do you deal with just blatantly false statements that were provided by one of the competing agents? And one of the most common I hear is on price, right? Oh, they said I could get X.
So having the data to back up your recommendations is incredibly important. And I think that price banding is just the way to really illustrate, especially graphically, what's happening in a particular price point. So I encounter this quite a lot as well. I think all of us, it doesn't matter where we are, we encounter the same things when we're sitting with a prospective seller. So-and-so said that I could get X. So having statistics available about your and other listings, average days on the market, percentage of list to sale price. And when you're looking at average list to sale price, the percentage of list to sale price, it's important to make sure that you're also looking at original list price, not just the list price where it was when it went to contract. And you'll sometimes see trends, and you can provide data in a way that is not speaking specifically about other agents, but perhaps agent number 2, agent number 3, so that you're not violating any ethics. But if you can show data about the realities of the market, and often when things are overpriced, you can definitely see days on the market and the percentage of price drops from original list that you can't argue with on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And so, statistics are the key to overcoming those blatant misrepresentations.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have Sarah White from Royal LePage Trinity. She's just asking, what if you'd like to break into this marketplace but don't have stats to share as you're new to the luxury market? What's the best strategy to get involved in the luxury market? So Sarah, just FYI, she's Royal LePage Trinity up in Collingwood. That's certainly a big cottaging area from Toronto for sure, and a lot of really nice properties up there.
Sure. Sarah, thank you for the question. Two approaches to the answer. I'm assuming that you're talking about not having the data that I mentioned in terms of your own luxury expertise. So in that respect, utilize as much as possible that of your brokerage in the area. If you can show that that your brokerage is supportive of you, developing that book of business, that can be helpful. But then I want to go to the idea of statistics that are available to all of us regardless of our production. And that is where we talked later on about analyzing the market by price range and truly understanding what's happening in your region and in your area, in the neighborhood that you're working. That data is available to those who are willing to do the work to get it. And that data can position you as knowledgeable about that marketplace, even as you are looking to build the experience. And then you can also capitalize on the fact that if you are truly dedicated to building that business, you're going to be hungry, and you're going to be more likely to try to do, 150% job as opposed to somebody who's already got that business. So there are strategies that work for seasoned professionals, and there are strategies that certainly can be engaged for those looking to break in. And don't forget the power of working other real estate professionals' open houses or brokers' opens. Make sure that you tour every property that you can and know the inventory in that marketplace just inside and out. That will get you over the hump. Market knowledge and understanding the statistics, I think, are the key to that.
And I think this ties into the next question that we have is, how would an agent who is about to list their first luxury property sell themselves competing with experienced luxury agents? That's from Laura Regimenti from Royal LePage Signature, Mississauga. So, I mean, I think you just answered it right there.
Yeah. And I think the most important thing is to not allow yourself to be intimidated by the idea that others are, that others have more experience. And so if you kind of shake off that apprehension, reach out to those realtors who are performing in their in that price range. Send them a handwritten invitation to preview the property. Give them a phone call. Invite them to come to an event or to visit, or to keep it in mind for their clients. Reach out to them. In many cases, they will be quite receptive and professional about it.
Nice. Well, let me I'll present my little part here just to remind some people of the end here. Just remind you a couple things. So one of the things that we've done for sales success is a whole redesigned webinar library for you. So, I mentioned, Tami, you came in and presented on concierge level service, and actually I can see that presentation right here at the bottom. So if you go to the RLP Network under training, webinar training, sales success, you'll find our new webinar library that allows you to kind of slice and dice and find topics of interest for you. I will also mention, you talked about the Certified Luxury Home Marketing Specialist. It is the official designation of Royal LePage's Carriage Trade program. Earning that designation means, you learn that specific question, which is how do you build your business in the luxury market, and how do you differentiate yourself as a luxury home marketing expert? There's a couple points in there, but that the lifestyle marketing secrets that go with promoting a luxury property, and as well as the rich buyer, rich sellers. There's a lot of great information I learned over time from Lori Mormore, for sure. Back in one of the first presentations she did with us, that is available in that library. You can check that out. When she talked a little bit about those kind of changes. Now, by the way, just FYI, if you go through the RLP Network, you'll find here at the bottom, rlpnetwork.com, Marketing, Carriage Trade, Luxury Designation. We are offered a 15% discount on that course, and as well as an extra year membership to the Institute. And, there's a lot of, you touched on it, a lot of the material, a lot of the stuff that you provide to help them really build that luxury portfolio that they're looking for. I do also want to remind everybody that those of you who deal with luxury often, Royal LePage is running a promotion right now with luxuryrealestate.com, who do who's who in luxury real estate, a global network of over 130,000 luxury real estate professionals, where we're offering a special rate. This can be found in the RLP Network as well. Same kind of section under RLP Network Marketing, Carriage Trade, and you'll find luxuryrealestate.com. But I wanted to remind you, because there's a date, you get a 1-year membership, but if you don't sign up, it's through March 31st, 2018. So if you don't sign up before that, well, you'll still be paying the same price, but you'll still only get it to March 31st. So last thing I want to remind everybody here is that we got our next coming webinar. So Google Keep, we're going to be doing staying on top of your to-dos with Google Keep. I'm going to actually be delivering that on April 12th. Google Keep is an awesome, awesome note-taking, to-do list creating app that's works on your phones and on your computer. So we'll be showing that and how it integrates with what you're doing. And then we're also having Buffini and Company, actually Dave McGee, the Vice President of Coaching from Buffini and Company, come in to deliver crucial conversations and motivation. How do you, what do you say to your current and potential clients, especially, you touched on some of that volatility that's going on in the market. In Toronto, we have buyers who are getting turned down at 5, 6, 7, offers, and so how do you keep them going? So that's going to be a really cool presentation. So let me get back to the questions here, Tami, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm, sure.
One of the questions I actually wanted to ask that relates back to that kind of getting into the luxury market is, what do you see, what are the most common mistakes that agents who don't have much luxury expertise do when they go on their listing presentations?
Well, I think it goes back to one of the premises that that we believe at the Institute, that you don't have to live the same lifestyle as your luxury clients in order to be successful. And I think one of the big mistakes that people make is thinking that they do need to live that same lifestyle. So, trying to dress to impress from a brand perspective or that sort of thing, I think is one of the mistakes. But I think that the biggest mistake is not being prepared, right? Not knowing the inventory, not knowing what's happening in the marketplace. So that's the key. Definitely.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that intimate knowledge, I think, I want to know that this is something you've done. I have one question. Somebody's just asking about downloading the info and sharing this presentation as a PDF or something like that. Would that be something you'd be available? Or, I know sometimes I will say my presenters say, nope, you know what, this is our presentation. We don't want it out there. If people want, they can rewatch it. So it's up to you.
I would have to defer to the Institute on that.
Gotcha. We'll have to check into that.
Yeah, we'll check into that. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's see other questions. I have lots of questions. So one of the other things then, well, the last question that I have kind of relates to what you had said. You mentioned yourself, you've heard a lot of people say, I don't want to give my house away. And so, and I know in the US, a lot of the Zestimate question has come up a lot, and people saying, for those of you on the webinar who are not so familiar, Zillow offers an estimating tool online where people can put in their address, and it'll say, based on your address, here's what we think your house will go for. And obviously, a lot of realtors point to the inaccuracies of that and the lack of kind of detail that kind of an estimate goes through. But they're finding that people, when they go to a listing presentation, people are saying, well, Zillow said I could get so much. And
Right.
so
the first thing that you need to do is actually look up the property on Zillow. You need to be able to see and to know what the sellers are actually seeing. So you can assume that every seller is looking up what their house is worth on Zillow, right? So if we know that, then we need to know what that number is that they're seeing, so that we can be prepared to either support it or suggest where we disagree and why we disagree. And I think the easiest way to explain away Zillow is understanding that it is a mathematical algorithm. So so I'm in a marketplace that has quite a lot of old housing stock. So if you tell me that that you've got two houses sitting right next to one another, built exactly at the same time in 1952, one of them has been remodeled and has all of the finishes and amenities that a modern buyer is looking for. The other one has not. And you can't tell me that those two homes are worth the same amount. Mm-hmm. And the algorithm that Zillow uses is based on square footage and nearby sales, and isn't taking into consideration the condition or desirability from that perspective. So ultimately, it comes down to that very, very important personal understanding, the market knowledge, the emotional side of things. We, as real estate professionals, we understand what things are appealing to buyers and what things are not. And so Zillow doesn't take into consideration any of those things, or any of the other mathematical algorithms, for that matter.
Yeah. Is that something you've heard in the luxury market in the U.S.?
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Really? Gotcha.
Yep.
So even the luxury people are going on Zillow.
Even the luxury people are looking, right? Everybody is curious, and especially because they have access to the tools, and so the another countermeasure to that is quite the opposite. In most situations, the property value set by the tax collector is usually significantly lower than the market value. And so it's also ammunition to remind them that any of those valuation processes are skewed in one way or another. And so if Zillow says that their home is worth that much and the tax appraiser disagrees, you can show them both ends of that spectrum.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I'm not seeing other questions. I'm seeing a couple thanks, seeing a couple of people saying, really one of the ones, very overwhelming presentation, good ideas and steps to follow. So, I think you gave, I really appreciate the clear instructions. You gave very clear, like, here's what you're going to do, which is always nice. I always like seeing that. So, I want to say thanks so much, Tami. I really love your presentations and the energy that you bring.
It's my pleasure.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope you'll tune in again next month for our next sales success webinar on Crucial Conversations. So until next month, everybody, have a great March.